Hey guys, Nukerev here once again, and we're going to be doing another deck profile on my Lair of Darkness Fang of Critias deck. This is just because I have made some minor adjustments to it, and the deck is now finished. So we're going to get right into it. As you guys already know, we start with Diabolos, but we only run two of him this time. Now, the reason why I cut him down to two is because you do not really want to draw into him. He's not very helpful to draw into, and so I don't want to see him as much. He's kind of more of an Armageddon Knight and Foolish Burial target, so I thought running two of them would kind of cut down on me drawing into him a lot more. It's really helped out a lot, and he's still just as powerful in the deck as he was at three, so he's really good at two. Now, what I think is the most important monster in the deck is obviously Lilith, Lady of Lament. She's the one you really want to draw into. As you guys know, you tribute a dark monster, including yourself, and you can search up to 3 normal traps from your deck, and your opponent selects one of them, randomly selects one of them for you to set, and the rest get shuffled back into the deck. So she's definitely your biggest combo piece in this deck. You really want to get a hold of her as frequently as possible, which is why, as you guys will see soon, we do have a lot of search options for her. Next up, we run 3 Arma, the Wicked Warden. This is a really nice kind of multi-tool type of monster. You can tribute a monster to draw a card, or if it was a monster other than itself, you can search for a Diabolos, and you can immediately summon that Diabolos that you just searched. Also, you can just discard it from your hand to add a layer to hand. So if you have 2 of these in your hand, that can be really useful, or attributing your opponent's monsters, draw power, getting Lair of Darkness, all that good stuff. Really fucking good card just to have in the deck. Next up, we run 2 Swift Scarecrows. The reason why we're running Swift Scarecrow is because since you're going to be tributing off a lot of monsters, and sometimes you're going to have to tribute off your own monsters, either for like Diabolos' effect or because Lair of Darkness isn't on the field at the moment, you're going to need a Swift Scarecrow just in case you get left with an empty field, which I've noticed tends to happen quite a bit in this deck. Having Swift Scarecrow in there, especially at 2, really nice to just kind of have. This deck doesn't really do great against like OTK decks, for example, so having a Swift Scarecrow in your deck just in case is really nice. Next up and last for the multis for the monsters, we have 2 Armageddon Knights. This basically acts as a Foolish Burial for Diabolos, or the next monster we'll get into, which is Destrudo. And of course, here's that Destrudo right here. He's really great for doing synchro plays. You target a level, I believe it's a level 6 or lower. Yes, it is a level 6 or lower monster. You pay half your life points to special summon him, and his level gets decreased by the level of the monster you targeted. So essentially you can synchro for 7 with this guy no matter what, which is really good for your Black Rose dragon plays, and if you run Dark Armed Fighter. I personally don't, but if you want to run him in this deck, he's a good option to try to get that kind of synchro play too. Next up, we run 1 Tour Guide. This is to search your Lilith, or if you really want to, you can search a Skarm with this or something like that. Really nice for that, and there is the play with Lilith to where if you do summon Lilith with Tour Guide, it can still tribute off a monster, but for no effect. This is just because of the semicolon rule. I'd rather not go into that. It's a pretty complex ruling, so yeah. Next up, again, we run 1 Dark Armed Dragon. You're going to be taking shit out of your graveyard all the time. You're going to be putting stuff in there all the time, so having exactly 3 dark monsters in your graveyard to special Dark Armed Dragon, it's a play you're going to be able to get into pretty easily, so I thought I'd run into him. And also his effect that you can banish dark monsters from your graveyard to pop a card. It's a really good out to a lot of monsters, and it's a really good win condition if you get it off late in game as well. Next up, we run 1 Skarm, Malabranch of the Burning Abyss. This is to, basically, you get this out when you either have like a token or just any other monster out. It immediately gets destroyed because if there's no other Burning Abyss monster on the field, it immediately gets destroyed. But at the end of the turn, you get to search for a level 3 Fiend type monster. And you always want to go for Lilith with this, so getting him into the graveyard, either by like Foolish Burial, Armageddon Knight, or his own effect that pops himself, is really good if you just need a Lilith. So really great card for searching. This is a new addition to the deck, but since you'll be tributing your opponent's monsters, I figured I'd actually be a little rude with it. We run one Lava Golem. This kind of acts as a kaiju in the sense of how you use it anyways. So it does have 3,000 attack, so giving it to your opponent is kind of a negative, but the way that I've been using this is I will tribute 2 of their monsters to give them a Lava Golem, and then I'll use Lair of Darkness's effect to tribute that Lava Golem right after that. You're not going to be using its effect of doing burn damage every turn very much, especially because your opponent is likely going to try and get rid of this monster pretty quickly. But if you're trying to wipe your opponent's board and then finding it's a great way to just kind of clear your opponent's board in general. It takes 2 tributes and then you tribute it off itself. So really good out, and I'd rather run that than Kaijus, which only tribute 1 monster. And I would run Sphere Mode alongside of it, but I just don't have a copy of Sphere Mode right now, so that's why we have that. Onto the spells, we run 3 Lair of Darkness, of course. You're going to want to get this card as soon as possible, or a lot of your combos are going to be kind of bunk. But you guys all know how this one works. Turns all monsters in the dark. You contribute your opponent's stuff once per turn, and you get tokens equal to the amount of monsters that were tributed this turn, which is another reason why we run Lava Golem, is because it's 2 more tokens that you get at the end of the turn. And that's without tributing using Lair of Darkness's effect, so that's why I've been running that. Next up, we run 3 Fang of Critias. We are running the Fang of Critias engine in here, of course. So we want to run 3 of these. This is your kind of your polymerization of the deck. So you're going to be wanting to get this as soon as possible. And what's really nice is that Lilith searches all of the traps that you are able to get with for Fang of Critias. So really great for this deck. Next up, obviously, we run our Regeki. Regeki, duh. I only run 1 Allure of Darkness. I'm not too keen on drawing a lot in this deck. I've never really needed to. I might run this at 2 if I was having trouble, but I'd probably run it as a side card. I don't like the risk that Allure of Darkness has, and I wouldn't run Trade-In because I don't want to use Trade-In. It's too specific to use, so I just run 1 Allure of Darkness. You guys will also see why with this next card, because we are going to be setting up our graveyard a lot. We're going to be running a Monster Gate. So Monster Gate, you reveal cards from the top of your deck until you find a monster that can be normal summoned. That could mean pretty much any of your monsters, except for maybe Lava Golem. I'm not sure what his special summoning condition. I'm not sure if you can normal summon him. I didn't check. But and then you send the rest to the graveyard. I mean, you're going to be trying to dump a lot of stuff into the graveyard as is. So this just really helps you out. But, and you have to tribute a monster to activate the effect. Even better, you know what I mean? Rerun 1 Upstart Goblin, just in case you do need that draw power. This is kind of what I've used instead of a second Allure of Darkness, just because I don't mind giving my opponent 1,000 life points. We run a Foolish Burial to dump our Skarms, our Destrudos, our Diabolos, and that kind of thing. Just straight to the grave. Great if you get it on the first turn. Great for setting up your combos. We run 1 Monster Reborn. For obvious reasons, it's Monster Reborn. We always want to run that. And lastly, for the spells, I run 1 Twin Twisters for spot removal of spells and traps and stuff like that. You may be wondering why I don't run 2 of them. When we move on to the traps, you'll see why. Because I run 2 Heavy Storm Dusters. This is searchable by Lilith, so I would rather run this than 2 Twin Twisters, just because this is searchable. I would run it at 3. I just don't have 3. But yeah, the only downside to this is you can't conduct your battle phase afterwards, which is totally fine. You're not really going to need it as much. Now on to the Fang of Critias traps. We run 2 Mirror Force, 2 Tyrant Wing, 1 Crush Card Virus, and 1 Ring of Destruction. I was thinking about running 2 offs of every single one of these, and I may experiment a little bit with that. But for right now, my 2 favorites right now are Mirror Force Dragon and Tyrant Burst Dragon, which is why I run 2 of those. We'll get into what those cards actually do here in a bit, but that's just my pick for my ratios for this. You could kind of edit these to your liking depending on how you want to play it. For one, I do like board wiping, and I like being able to attack multiple monsters in case I go for the beatdown strategy, so that's why I run those. Crush Card Virus and Ring of Destruction have their own things as well, so you're welcome to use that to your own ratios. Then I run one Horn of Heaven. You tribute a monster to negate the summon of one of your opponent's monsters. Really nice card for that. But the only problem is since it's a counter trap, it's not searchable by Lilith, which is why I only run it at 1. Next up, this is also searchable by Lilith, Trickstar Reincarnation for obvious reasons. I don't run Jewel and Lockbird in this, so I don't have that combo to go off of. But I do like to be a little merciful, so opening with this and just getting rid of your opponent's opening hand for good can be really, really awesome. And I've noticed a lot of people tend to give away whether their opening hand is good or not, so it's kind of up to you to notice that and know when to use this card since we don't have Jewel and Lockbird. Next up we run a Back to the Front. This is just kind of like your second Monster Reborn, and it's searchable by Lilith, so really nice. Next up we have Eradicator Epidemic Virus. This is great for getting rid of spells and traps. This can shut down entire decks, just period, for 3 turns, if not for a game, basically. So that's why it's limited for 1, and that's why we run it. And obviously, searchable by Lilith. I should probably stop saying that. Everything except for Horn of Heaven in this deck is searchable by Lilith. So next up we run a Mind Crush. When you're using your viruses, whether it be Crush Card or Eradicator, if you have to use Crush Card, of course. I usually only use Crush Card if I'm tributing an opponent's monster, like if I really have to get rid of a monster. But otherwise, I never really use Crush Card's actual effect, as Doom Virus Dragons is much better. But you're going to be looking at their hand, so using a Mind Crush would be really awesome. I swear I had 2 copies of this, but I couldn't find it, so whatever. And lastly, we run one Metaverse. This is searchable by Lilith, obviously, and it searches for Lair of Darkness, and you can actually activate it or add it to your hand. You're always going to want to activate it, obviously, so always great for that. All right, on to the extra deck. For Link monsters, we're going to be running one Wee Witch's Apprentice, of course. We're going to be running one Decode Talker, a Gaia Saber the Lightning Shadow. This is great for generic Link plays, and it is a rank 3, which will help you get into the next monster on this list, which is Topologic Dumblar Dragon. You're going to be tributing off your opponent's stuff en masse all the time. Why not have a Link monster that also makes them discard stuff? It's just kind of an added fuck you to the deck, essentially, so that's why I run it. You don't go into him too often because Link 4s tend to be a little hard to do in this deck, but if you can get it off, especially if you have Gaia the Lightning Shadow, or Gaia Saber, sorry, then you can go into him pretty decently. And Gaia Saber just takes, 2 to 3 tokens. Or sorry, it takes 3 tokens, basically, is how I usually go into it. So for the Xyz monsters, we run one number 40, Give It Puppet of Strings. This puts a string counter on all monsters on the field. And at the end of your opponent's next turn, all monsters with string counters get destroyed. He does not get a string counter on it, though, which is really nice. And he's also got 3,000 attack, so, why not? Next up, we run one Hieratic Sundragon Overlord of Heliopolis. He tributes any number of monsters on the field to pop as many cards on the field, which is just absolutely amazing in this deck. It's really nice. He's usually my out to most things. Now, the next Xyz monster, you're not going to be able to summon on your own, but I do have it in here because my side deck is full. We do run Waking the Dragon in our side deck, so I do have one Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon in there. And lastly, for the Xyz, we have one number 22 Zombie Stein. The effect of it isn't really relevant in this, but it only takes 2 level 8 Dark Monsters, which is, as you guys well know, 2 Diabolos. So if you want to get those out, you can get a 4,500 attack beater onto the field, which is really nice for just, beating stuff, essentially. Next up, we have one Black Rose Dragon for popping the entire field. Another Waking the Dragon target in Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. And we also have Beals the Diabolic Dragons. for other synchro plays as well. Beals and Black Rose you can go into just, whenever. But Crystal Wing, you'll want to run Awaking the Dragon or side in your Waking the Dragon if you want to summon that. So. And lastly, for our extra deck, we do have our Fang of Critias fusions. We have one Destruction Dragon, one Mirror Force Dragon, one Doom Virus Dragon, and one Tyrant Burst Dragon. So if you guys don't know what they do, Destruction Dragon has the same effect as Ring of Destruction. You select a monster your opponent controls, and instead of you taking the damage as well, only your opponent actually takes the damage. For Mirror Force Dragon, if it's targeted for an attack, or if any of your monsters are targeted for attack, or Mirror Force Dragon is targeted by an effect, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Doom Virus Dragon is Crush Card Virus before it was eroded. And Tyrant Burst Dragon can attack all your opponent's monsters once each, or you can equip it to another monster. That monster that it's equipped to gains 400 attack, and it can make up to 3 attacks during each battle phase. So all of them are very useful for their own certain situations. You really want to kind of read what situation you want. As you said earlier, you can kind of combine your ratios depending on what you want to do. So that's it for the main deck and extra deck. We'll move on to the side deck now. We run a MST for spell and trap removal in case we need another one. We run, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Awaking the Dragon. This is kind of a new addition as well. I run Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell. This is actually run against decks like True Dracos, for example, that you have that one spell card, or different spell cards in some examples, that you just need to get rid of. This locks them out of, say, Dragonic Diagram for the entire turn if that's the card that you target it with. So that's really nice to be able to get done. Next up, we run 2 more viruses. We run one Deck Devastation virus and one Full Force virus. These can be used to your liking, just depending on whatever you need them for. I like to use Deck Devastation for things like hand traps. So yeah. Next up, we run one Scapegoat. Scapegoat is just used for tokens, just stuff to tribute. You put this out after you have Lair of Darkness out, and you've got 4 free token targets, and then you're going to get more tokens spawn at the end of the turn. So they're just really good fodder for that. Obviously, they can't be tributed for a tribute summon, so that's a little bit of a downside, but it also helps to be able to go into stuff like Gaia Saber and Wee Witch's Apprentice, for example, if you have Lair of Darkness on the field. Next up, we have one Dark Necrofear. This kind of acts as like a BLS for dark monsters. You banish 2 dark monsters, and when this card is destroyed, then you can equip this card to a monster your opponent controls, and as long as Necrofear is equipped to that monster, you get control of that monster. Next up, we have a Floodgate in Vanity's Fiend. Neither player can special summon monsters while Vanity's Fiend is on the field, and he's got a nice 2400 body for a level 6. Yes, a level 6. So he's really nice to be able to get out on the field. Next up, we run 2 Effect Veilers, just because you need Effect Veilers, I think. Next up, we actually have another Metaverse, just in case you really need that ability to search for Lair of Darkness more, and if you're not getting it, or your opponent just keeps taking shit from your hand, stuff like that. Next, we run one Ballista Squad. You tribute a monster and then target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. Just really nice, just general destruction. And lastly, in the side deck, we run one Soul Charge. Again, just in case we really need it. You're really going to be paying life points because a lot of the times you're going to go into Destrudo and go into Black Rose, so you're going to be taking half your life points away anyways, so that's why I have Soul Charge in the side deck, because it's kind of more of like I really need to push out a bunch of shit from my graveyard, so that's, why I have that in there. But yeah, that's actually the deck. Don't mind me as I just haphazardly scramble these together with one hand. But I hope you guys actually enjoyed this deck profile. This is actually the last deck profile I'm going to be doing for Lair of Darkness, as this is my build that I am happy with. Now I am going to be building a couple other decks here in the future. I am actually going to be building a Skull Servant OTK deck, and I will also be building a Time Lord deck. So look for those in the future. I think those decks are really fun, and I'm going to have a lot of fun building those and playing with those. And I'm also considering building my own Blue Eyes build. So look forward to that. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.